Starting December 26th, the U.S. will be asking Canadian visitors to be photographed every time they enter or leave that country. Meanwhile, European countries are implementing a new system that will collect facial images and fingerprints to verify identities. The new travel rules have caused concerns for many Canadians who fear an invasion of privacy. But should it be cause for concern? Let's try and get some answers here. Steve Waterhouse is with us, a cybersecurity expert. Hi, Steve. Welcome back to the show.
Good morning.
So what's your reaction? And again, you got the announcement from U.S. officials, Europe moving in the same direction, not exactly the same way, but in the same direction. What's your reaction to both of these news items?
Well, first of all, in 2025, who has not provided a picture or personal information online? So in this modern age, people just keep sending information through the internet to whatever social media whatsoever. And now we have government officials now saying we want to document when you come in and when you're going to be exiting the country. And I've seen that also happening across the world. A couple of years ago, I traveled in Central America, those places, and they already were implementing these measures of documenting facial recognition and fingerprints for travelers coming in. Some countries have MOUs, so they are not subjected to these documentations, but now it's becoming more prevalent to everyone.
What's an MOU, by the way, Steve? You said an MOU? I have no idea what that means.
Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay, gotcha.
So just clarification of the terms. And so by saying that also, I was in April in Israel and in France, and still every country has their own way of doing things. And so in advance, and like in Israel and in the UK, you have to register in advance when you're traveling there. So they vouch and they say yea or nay, you can enter. But the European Union, hence in France, will document you, and now they won't even manually put a stamp in your passport because they're documenting you in advance and also at the checkpoint. And so they're taking your picture and they say yea or nay from their recognition system that you are authorized or not to enter the country. So it is becoming a norm, a standard across the world. And in Canada, airline companies have been doing this kind of implementation project of making you the identification instead of your passport. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in Vancouver, they set up those kiosks in which before you're getting into the airplane, you don't need to get out your passport, and you'll be passing through these gates, and by just your face, they'll let you in or not.
Yeah, the facial recognition technology there. Now, Steve, sometimes when we see headlines, especially these days, when we see a headline about what the U.S. is doing at their border, the story is sort of made to seem that this is because of Donald Trump and his administration. I want to know from your perspective, has the writing been on the wall from U.S. authorities on where they're going pre-Trump? Has this been a successive U.S. administrations moving in the same direction, or has something actually changed since Donald Trump returned to the White House?
Well, there's an emphasis put on the new administration that just is going to be using that more than it was already planned project. Like I was setting the table, it's being thought of across the world. So the world is now, the governments of the various authorities across the world are using the technology to better understand who comes in and who's not authorized to come in versus just there's a weak link in the human factor that checks the passport. So they want to take that and reduce that risk of misidentifying someone. But the contrary is also possible, because facial recognition is not a perfect mean, and there will still be a place where human factor will have to double check. So back to the politics of it. Yes, probably a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's because of the 47th president that's come in power. He wants to make sure that he applies strict rules and so on. Maybe so. But then again, like I was saying, other countries are already doing it, and then those that are not doing it will come into doing it. And it's just a mean of using technology nowadays. It's not phantomizing about the current things, state of things, let's say.
Do we know how the photos, the fingerprints, the iris scans, do we know how any of that stuff is stored, used, kept? Any standards there? What happens when we get registered, taking a photo? What happens to that data?
In the U.S. as well as Canada, let's just take these two countries as an example. They do have legal obligations of making sure the information is just documented as a standard, and then kept into the computer systems of these governments. And by such, legal aspects have always been double checked before they commit to such a system. It's not just a random act of just say, hey, let's use this and we'll make everybody pay for that. No, it's on the contrary. There's a lot of thinking going on and a lot of verifications. And once it's done, if there's a contestation, I mean, if somebody challenges the legality of it, there's a whole foundation of legal basis that's behind it. Because it's going to be said, it has to be trustworthy and it has to be verifiable. So compared to other places around the world, they will just put it on, and you can never question the process. You can never question the government in place. But that said, for our use here, and there will be also if not already done, a reciprocity process between Canada and U.S. to exchange the information, so the people don't have to register twice. And in this, I give you the example of the Nexus card. Mm-hmm. So for frequent travelers that goes between Canada and the U.S., there is this program that you just go on and register yourself either to CBSA or DHS Border Protection, and you give them your identity, your facial recognition, and so on. And then they vouch against your criminal record, financial records, and so on. And then you're deemed as a recognized a trustworthy traveler. Mm-hmm. So that's one way. That's a voluntary program by which you just submit your information, and you're kind of a part of your privacy. But just that said, you skip a whole bunch of lines, and you don't wait around.
Does this lead us to a future if every country ends up doing this and implement, or the European Union, the U.S., everyone starts to implement things like this? Do we end up in a future where we don't have those security lines? We don't have to wait. There's no check. Like going to the airport is much like it was in the past. We can just walk on planes, but of course we're getting scanned at every moment to verify us. Is that where we're headed?
Unfortunately, I have to say yes to that. And that's for convenience. Of course, they're going to bring us that advantage of making these systems part of the daily lives as an advantage of skipping the lines and enhancing the boarding process and so on. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, the oversight, there's less and less oversight, and I haven't seen so far a description on to whom we can address grievances and ask to have justice be given to us as a traveler. So that's the problem right now, that for the rightful reason, they're just implementing this, and every government is doing this for the right reasons, of course. But it is kind of scary to understand that you cannot go anywhere right now without being documented.
Submit your complaints to the large black box. Steve, I got to leave it there. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a nice day.
Steve Waterhouse, cybersecurity expert.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.